rigged it to give it to somebody specific or something.
Exactly.
All
So
right, we're on.
we are on. So we're live.
Great.
So Patric, thank you for doing this. This is Patric Fransko. Everybody joining in, thank you for watching. And Patric's here. In your own words, Patric, what did we just talk about? You're saying as far as the questions go today.
Well, I just said, to me, I think the most valuable use of this time is you've got some marketing background. You're really good at that. And that's what we do at iMagnet. So I said, I'd really like us to just dive into marketing questions and have people send in questions and really get granular with providing value to them on just, anything that they can think of asking. Nothing's too stupid. I think the most value we can give is just practical marketing things they can take out tomorrow morning and start implementing. So
that sounds perfect. So what we're going to do is you were kind enough and to bring up, you have a book with you, right? So we're going to be doing a giveaway today. It's the Crush It book by Gary Vee, and it's a signed edition of it.
Yep.
And
there we go. So I actually got this the last time I was at VaynerMedia in New York. I got a copy of this, and I actually have a copy of Crush It that wasn't signed, but they gave me this when I was there the last time, and I was like, I don't need a second copy of it. So somebody tonight's going to go ahead and get this one. So
cool. So the way we're going to do that tonight is we're going to basically to enter to win that book. All you need to do is ask a question in the comments during this live video. And then at the end of it, on screen, we're going to put up everybody's name who asked a question. And then on screen, we're going to use a random name picker to decide, who the winner is. So that's it. So why don't we get... Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh,
I was just going to say, so the more questions, I guess the better chance you have to come away a winner tonight. So fire away.
So let's do it. So why don't we just get started? If there's anybody out there who doesn't know who you are, give us a little background of how you got in the window film industry and who you are, what you do.
Sure. Well, I've been in the window film industry, in and around the window film industry for over 20 years. I started in the window film industry as a territory manager for a distributor for what was at that time CP Films and Lumar, and was one of the few people that helped launch 44 Tools back in the day with Performance Films and Performance Tools. I still know all those guys over there today. And after a while, I went to work for a company that actually helped project manage large window film projects for large retailers nationwide, companies like Kay Jewelers, Victoria's Secret, Verizon, a lot of big name retailers. And we would basically be a single point of contact that would allow them to implement, window film projects across 80 properties nationwide. And we would connect the dots and help them make that happen. After that, I actually ran a West Coast distribution center for 3M, the 3M West Coast Distribution Center for window film, managed a sales team out of there, and then spent some time as the chief marketing officer with Interwest for once those two companies consolidated for 3M, and decided about 5 years ago to start my own marketing agency, primarily working with small to medium-sized businesses on everything digital marketing related. So that's kind of a quick flyover.
Okay. So I'm curious if we could start, what can you tell us about your experience as, doing marketing for Interwest? I mean, that's such a iconic, business in the window film industry, and to be in charge of all their marketing. What was that like? Well,
that came about because as the West Coast Distribution Center and Interwest sort of consolidated, I was running the West Coast Center and Hugh Jr. was running Interwest. So we sort of wanted to work together, and it was kind of like, you don't need two people sort of, and that was clearly Hugh's company. So my role became chief marketing officer, and it was enjoyable. At that time, we launched Interwest Tools, and that became a really nice outlet for tools, kind of harkening back to my history with tools. And we really started utilizing digital marketing to reach customers and then also help a lot of the customers that Interwest was working with understand more about digital marketing and how to implement it at the local level with their company as well. So Great company. Obviously, I still, again, am friends with all those guys today, and don't have anything but good things to say about Interwest. So
that's really cool, and that's why I was really excited to have you on today, because I feel like everybody has their knowledge to contribute. And, but one thing that you can't make up for is time. And you've been in this industry for a long time, and you've had a lot of experience, and like those experiences just compound. So I'm really interested into diving into.
Are you trying to say I'm old, Eric? I'm trying to pick it up.
I'm saying you're full of experience.
No, I mean, it's went by really quick. And again, it's kind of like a lot of people in the industry. I think this industry is a great industry. And I think once you're involved in it, it's really, I enjoy it because, a lot of people can make a very nice living in this industry, and you don't need a college degree, and you don't need any fancy background or whatever. And I've met a lot of great people that have had really good careers and continue to have really good careers. So I just think it's an awesome industry that not too many people know about. It's kind of, under the radar. It's
been around for, 50 years, 40 years or so at least, but it's still kind of in its infancy, because it's mainly mom and pop, would you say? At least 90% of the businesses, if not 100, are somehow mom and pop shops.
I would say that. I think that's changing a little bit. You're seeing the consolidation and a couple really large groups that are like buying, additional companies and becoming larger and larger entities. But I'd say by and large, if you were to do it by percentages, 90% of the companies are definitely, I would say, sub $1 million top line revenue, I would say, or in that ballpark, I would say.
So with iMagnet Management, that's your current business. What type of companies do you mainly work with as far as in the tint industry, I guess outside the tint industry? Like, what do you guys do?
Sure. Well, we primarily, my focus when I started this was really to work with small and medium-sized business, because my passion is really around helping somebody. One, small and medium-sized businesses, they're typically so busy running their businesses, they don't have a lot of time to think about marketing, or maybe they haven't had a lot of time to really pay attention to these platforms. So the need is really high in that segment specifically, versus larger companies that maybe have the revenue to bring on a full-time marketing person. A lot of small and medium-sized businesses aren't at a level where that's a possibility. Right. So the need is there. The other part of that is, if the passion part for me of why I like to focus on the small to medium-sized businesses is if I can work with a company that's doing, say, $300,000 top line revenue, $400,000 top line revenue, and we can implement some positive digital marketing for them, social media marketing, and they can increase that top line revenue to $600,000-$700,000. That changes the life of the person that owns that business. I mean, that's changes dramatically the ability, the life they're able to afford, sending their kids to college, whatever the case may be. So it's for me, I enjoy the impact to be. It's more, I would say, fulfilling for me to help a company go from $300,000 to $400,000 to $600,000 than it is for me to help a larger company go from $10 million to $12 million. Even though that's a $2 million increase, it's more fulfilling for me because of the impact that it has on the business owners' lives when they have that increase from $300,000 to $500,000 or $600,000. So that's kind of why I got into it, and why I really have focused specifically on small to medium size. Now, we work with companies outside the window film industry as well. We work with some larger companies. One company we work with is in the trucking industry, and we work with the corporate office as well as over 40 of their licensees across the country. So we have some larger clients as well, and I certainly enjoy their business and like working with them as well. But the real passion part of me is in talking to an owner and just really having them say, hey, we've had our best year ever. And, it's been all, I mean, that to me is what really gets me up in the morning and keeps me going. So.
Yeah. And, like you said, I feel like most of the, tint businesses, they're operating at 110%, they're stretched thin, or they simply don't necessarily know how to pick the right marketing person to handle their business. I mean, there's 1,000,001 different people that will claim they can do SEO. I'm sure everybody gets emails every day about that. But you know, it's one thing to know marketing, and it's one thing to know marketing and window film, you know, and that you bring to the table. And I think that's really special.
And the other part of that too is when somebody's in that position, their budget is such that they can't afford to waste any money. I mean, they don't have, you know, a larger company maybe has allocated a big chunk of money for marketing, and you can afford to make some mistakes or have some things not really work. When somebody's a small to medium-sized business and they hire you, they really need you to put, you know, some, you know, basic blocking and tackling in place and get some things working for them and get some ROI working for them, because they don't have, you know, for them to spend $500 a month is a decent chunk of money for them, and they really need that to show some returns. Where for other companies, you know, their monthly budget for marketing might be $40,000 or $50,000, so they're able to withstand a little bit more, you know, swing and miss type situations because they, you know, they've got the budget to absorb that. So it really puts the pressure on us to make sure that what we're doing for our clients is going to have an impact that's going to start paying dividends right away. So that if they're spending $500 that month, they're getting back, you know, $4,000 or whatever for the $500 they spent. So they're ROI positive right from the beginning.
And is $500 kind of a good, like, rough number as to what one could expect as an entry-level budget, or?
It really depends on the market and what you want to do. Obviously, like Google AdWords, a lot of people want to do that, and we manage a lot of Google AdWords accounts. But I really say to people, you know, Google AdWords, if you don't have $10 a day to spend, even in a smaller market, you're almost better off taking that money and doing some other more strategic things with it, because you're just not going to get that much traction for less than $300 a month. So if somebody comes to me and they say, hey, I've got $500 total between paying you and doing ad buys and things like that, I'd maybe steer them away from Google AdWords, because after you spend $300, there's not a whole lot there, you know? So I think you really got to work with the client and say, I mean, you know, what do they have to spend, and then what their expectations, because a big part of our business too is making sure expectations are in alignment with, you know, what the, you know, sometimes it's like the biggest issue that a marketing company could get into is, you know, telling somebody they can accomplish. You know, you have to be real about what's possible and what can be accomplished, and realistically chipping away at something where you can have an impact. Because again, if somebody's got a very fixed budget, there's only going to be certain things you can do. And one of the things we try to do is say, work backwards, like, hey, what do you have to spend? And then let's figure out the best package we can put together that's going to give you some return on that investment. It may not be Google AdWords, it might be Facebook ads, it might be other things. So, you know, realistically, I feel like it's really hard to work with a marketing agency and do any sort of ad type buying for probably less than $500 total spend, because you're going to have to spend some money with Facebook or Instagram or somebody, and then you're going to have to pay somebody to help you do that. So I would say that's probably a good entry level. But again, for that $500, potentially 200 of that might be going to Google or Facebook out of that, you know, so.
Right. Okay. That makes perfect sense. I mean, Google AdWords, you're talking about, like you said, a $10, even just a $10 a day, $300 a month, like, you know, at $3-4 a click, that budget can disappear real quick. Hard to necessarily show much of a return, I guess. You know, with such high cost per click.
Strategic things you could do. You could do some things with like YouTube pre-roll and things like that. Where you can get some really positive impressions and things like that for pennies on the, you know, on the watch and things like that. But then you got to back up a step and say, okay, you have to have a pre-roll ready video, a video that was shot that is specifically been shot with the intent of being a YouTube pre-roll video. So what's the production cost on that? So if so you've really got to, like, one of those things. I mean, if somebody's got, say, a manufacturer's got a great pre-roll video that we can just tag with the business owner's information, we could potentially take something that their manufacturer has, modify it a little bit and run it as a pre-roll video and do that if they're on a really tight budget and get them some good traction for a smaller amount of money. And that's, again, we really try to figure out what the assets on the table are, what the budget on the table is, and then putting the puzzle together to figure out what's going to work for them. Because all of our clients are month to month. We don't have any contracts with any clients. So it really puts our agency, our backs against the wall to produce results. Because if we don't produce results at any given time, that next month you can say, I'm not renewing. So I have no real vested interest in bringing you on board, putting together a program that I know is not going to work. You know, the only way we can continue on with clients is to produce results. So I really, we want to put together a package that you're going to be happy with and you're going to continue. And, thank God, 5 years in, a lot of our clients have been with us for a decent chunk of that 5 years, but they're still not on any long-term contracts. It's been month to month for years on end.
So I'll jump right into the comments, but before I do, I have a question for you. Something you brought up was, if the manufacturer might have a pre-roll, like a video that suits pre-rolled really well, you could just use that. You've been in the industry for decades, literally. You've seen the evolution. You've seen kind of the popularity of the internet. 20 years ago, most businesses weren't on the internet. Not many people were doing marketing for themselves and so on. Yep. Where do you see us now? Where do you see that going? How important do you see great things coming more and more out of the manufacturers? Do you see it being more and more of a responsibility of the shop? What do you see there?
I feel like, I would say there are certain manufacturers I think are doing a really good job producing good quality content that it doesn't make any sense for the individual shop owners to recreate that. Maybe it's something that's a highly produced video that's a really strong and they can just tag it. And I think that it makes sense for them, rather than an individual shop in a market to spend, several $1,000s to put together a good quality video. If their manufacturer has one, I think that makes sense. I think a lot of manufacturers are stepping up and doing things like that. I feel like there can always be more. I kind of feel like from a marketing standpoint, anything the manufacturer can do multiplies by hundreds. Like if they can spend $10,000 on a video produced really well and allow 500 dealers to use that video. So, $10,000 divided by 500 dealers is very cost effective. So I'd like to see more manufacturers looking at it from a standpoint of producing things like that, because I think the quality of, there's definitely on certain things, the quality of the piece is going to be beneficial, whether it's a video or even, on certain new product launches, great pictures and, great things that the client can use. So I think the manufacturers are coming along to see that. I think it could always be better. I do feel like that the other side of that coin is I don't think small businesses have to wait for manufacturers to do that anymore, because I feel like you're better off producing some content yourself and just jumping into the pool and getting your feet in there than to wait for the manufacturers to do it. So I would say if you are working with a manufacturer that has great content, by all means, let's leverage that content. Mm-hmm. But if you're working with a manufacturer that keeps saying, hey, we got stuff coming, I wouldn't wait for them to do that in order to do something. I would, take control of that yourself. And if they ever do come up with something, by all means, use it. But with the quality, we were just talking about this before we went online, the quality of images and video that you can capture on probably the phone in your pocket these days enable just about everybody to capture decent enough content, and you just have to have, a basic understanding of like how to frame up a picture or the way to kind of, the way you might want to shoot a video. That's all really simple. There's nothing really difficult about it, but I think that not an excuse to not have content. Even if your manufacturer's doing nothing for you, there's really not an excuse to not create content.
Yeah. And, as far as that goes, like you said, you're on an iPhone 11 now, you're crystal freaking clear. And I have an iPhone 11. I always upgrade my phone. Now, I wasn't somebody who always did that, but I feel like now I recommend everybody spend the money. They have plans that you can finance it. It's worth every penny, because if you're using an older phone, you're like, it's going to be super annoying. Like, first of all, we're talking about video quality here. Like, the video quality won't be that great and so on. So you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot there. But even just like responding to customers that text message or dealing with calls and that sort of thing, if you're on an old phone, you're going to be like, please don't text message me. It's super annoying. If you're on a new phone, it's super easy, right?
Well, and I think that you just have to look at it. My thought is your phone's always on you. So like you could have a Canon DSLR, you could have a nice camera that you could shoot things and buy that and say, okay, I've got every intention every time I do a car or when I do a project out at a commercial property or whatever, I'm going to go out and take good pictures. But the reality is a lot of times what happens is the camera gets left back at the shop, or you don't want to take it out. It's a little bit too much hassle. The thing I love about a phone, it's always right in your pocket. It's ready to roll at any time. And I kind of feel like, you don't want perfect to be the enemy of good. Like getting a picture of something, taking a picture of a house or a commercial building or a car and having something that's usable is better than having nothing. And a lot of times what's frustrating is sometimes when you have the nicer equipment, you don't get the pictures because you think, well, I don't have my camera with me. And then you end up missing out on opportunities. So what I would agree with what you're saying about the phone, and having a better phone puts you in a position. I mean, heck, with the iPhone 11 now, I don't know that you're going to capture images much nicer with a camera than you would with your phone. So I don't really see to me, the thing I like about the camera is it's always on you. It's always ready to go.
Yep. And then, even if what you just said, 1,000% correct. I've gone through that process of buying all these fancy cameras, always thinking, well, another camera, a different camera, a bigger camera, a smaller camera, one with a stabilizer and so on. And at the end of the day, all you do is you load up your memory cards. You either have dead batteries or you don't have your camera at the time you need it. You're pulling out a car or you're in somebody's home tinting their windows. You're not necessarily going to have time to get all that done. But even if you do with your camera, what ends up happening is you have to actually take that video from your camera, put it on your computer, and then upload it to YouTube. And just that step alone can be the step that makes you not do it. Whereas if you film it on your phone, you can upload it straight to YouTube from your phone with like 2 clicks maybe, right? And to Facebook and wherever else you need to go.
Absolutely. And and I think some people get so carried away with feeling they need to have everything edited and perfect. And heck, the book that we're giving away today, if anybody's learned anything from Gary, it's that if the quality of the content's good and what you're putting out there is good, it can be real rough. It can be on a street corner with cars beeping and sirens in the background. I feel like, to me, I feel like, especially today, you need to be putting out content on a regular basis. And if feeling like it needs to be too perfect is stopping you from doing that, you need to get past that and just start, obviously there's things you can do, like properly framing up a car so that you don't have a telephone pole right behind the car. And, there's things you could just, basic things you could think about, like not cutting off a bumper by not framing it up properly and things like that. But other than that, I think there's still a huge benefit in just start, taking pictures, start taking video and get it out there.
Yeah. It goes in waves. And, if you go back, I feel like if you go back a decade or so, people's content there was more rough. And then it went nicer to where you're watching cars getting PPF and tint. And it's like full movie production, like transitions. And it's like the most beautiful stuff. But with that said, then what really ends up standing out when everybody's doing that is, like you said, the guy who takes their cell phone out and they just film something raw, and you're scrolling through and you're skipping all those commercials that are produced and you're going, oh, wait, what's this? And you're in there. You feel it's real, you feel it's authentic, and you feel like that's really what I can expect. Because go ahead.
You hit the nail right on the head with the word, and I would say authentic. I think there's nothing wrong with production quality, but I think when production quality gets to such a degree that it feels like a commercial, I feel like, especially on social media, sometimes there's a disconnect. I almost feel like somebody would rather just see the shop owner and actually feel like this is a real business and I'm connecting with them, versus feeling like that was a great 30-second commercial, super well produced, everything like that. But we see that every day. We see that on TV. We see that, everywhere we look, we see well-produced stuff. So to me, as crazy as it sounds, I think when somebody comes across just completely authentic, it actually stands out in a positive way because it doesn't feel like a commercial.
One thing I want to mention, we're giving away this book from Gary Vee. And, I became aware of Gary Vee about maybe 6 years ago, give or take. It was his USC talk went viral, and that caught my attention. And at the time, I was in the middle at the beginning of my flat glass business. I was super overwhelmed in a good way. I mean, I just was trying to keep everything organized. We were growing extremely fast, but at the same time, I was scared because with that success, I was scared. I was scared. What if things change? What if I make a bad decision? I have partners. How do I make sure I'm doing the right thing for the business and so on? And what really struck a chord with me during that USC talk was, he instilled this confidence in me. And the confidence was like, you have to just go for it. Like, you have to double down on your strengths. Because at the time I was saying, I know internet really well. And I was marketing on the internet and it was successful. But what was in the back of my head, as stupid as it sounds now in retrospect, was I was going, well, what I need to do is billboards? What if what I need to do is TV? Because to me, that was things I didn't know. So it was kind of that grass is greener. And I was saying, no matter how well it's working for me now, maybe I need that stuff the professionals know. And he just said, double down on your strengths. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to freaking go for it. And that was a beyond pivotal moment for me in my business. I just, before we get into the questions, I'd like to just touch on, your relationship with Gary Vee and what you've been able to learn from him and so on.
Well, I mean, I actually met Gary the first time not long after he was transitioning. I was aware of him when he was shooting the wine videos. And I met him for the first time not long after he was transitioning into actually writing this book and be talking more about business. And definitely an influential person at that time in my life as far as understanding the direction I wanted to go. And then over the years, just had numerous interactions with him, both online and meeting up with him. And a couple years ago, when I launched the agency, one of the things I was really concerned about is I'm like, if I'm going to start an agency, especially if I'm going to ask small and medium-sized businesses on a tighter budget to spend their money with me, I want to make sure we're providing a really high quality of service. And I don't want to do things that are like, not as good as they can be. There's no reason why we can't provide a quality of knowledge and service to a small and medium-sized business that somebody with a bigger budget can. So I reached out to Gary. I actually emailed him and said, hey, is there any way, obviously, because we don't compete with anybody he would be working with as a client, is there any way that we essentially as an agency can come to Vayner and kind of learn what you guys do in a way that we can take that back? This was before the Sasha Group and everything like that even got started. Take that back and be able to implement that with our teams. And he actually was kind enough to connect me with a couple people on his team. And next thing I knew, we were in New York. And since that, I've been to Vayner numerous times. And we kind of have a relationship where they share some information that I probably wouldn't be able to get as an agency my size, but they have those connections to get. So, and Gary's, I can't say enough great things about him. Everything you think about him when you watch the videos, he's that and better in person. And just, I mean, he's one of the few people that I have come across in my life that I would say not only is super smart, but is incredibly humble and is genuinely goes out of his way to try to help people. Where I've said to my wife numerous times, I mean, the relationship we have with them now with Vayner, I'm like, I don't understand what the benefit is to Vayner to do what they do for me. I mean, it's a one-way road. Like, it's all benefit on my side. I don't see that them getting any benefit from it, but I'm thankful to Gary and his team that they've allowed that to occur. So,
well, Gary's addressed that though. Gary's addressed that the true reason behind all of it is legacy and to show up at his funeral, right?
Yeah, well, I'll be there.
I mean, so You know, and one more thing to point out to everyone is if you know Gary Vaynerchuk, if you follow him, of course, I would imagine you'd want your business to be run by VaynerMedia. But as Patrick said, you know, there's no competition there. I don't know of any company in the window film industry that has the budget or currently spending the budget to be able to even qualify to get in the VaynerMedia doors. So, but with that said, one of the things Gary makes clear is when you become a client of VaynerMedia, you're a client of VaynerMedia. You're not Gary's client. Gary's not, you know, he's not doing the marketing for you. And then people's next question is, well, why would anybody, you know, don't people just insist on having Gary? And he says, no, they're going to be, you know, you're going to want to use his team because his team is under his instruction. You know what a genius he is. Of course, you just want his team doing it. With that said, that's what I feel like you're getting with Patric, because, you know, again, it's that trickle down effect. Patric has a relationship. Patric's in touch with them. Patric learns a lot from them. And that's why I feel like, you know, if you're looking for somebody for SEO, if you're looking for somebody for ads and into social media and so on, like, you have to consider Patric because, again, he knows window film, he knows marketing. And then you go, well, who's Patric's teacher? Where is he learning this from? And one of those people being Gary V, I mean, it's hard to replicate that. It would be hard to find somebody else with those qualifications.
I mean, I feel like whether you're in the window film industry, whatever industry you're in, I feel like we've all probably heard the saying, like, you're an average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. I feel like in business, there's a similar parallel to that. And, you know, I've been fortunate not only, you know, to have some interaction with Gary's team, but I also am really good friends with a woman friend of mine that is actually the chief marketing officer for a large clothing brand. So I've actually, from a business standpoint, surrounded myself with a small nucleus of people that actually, you know, I like to put myself in the situation where I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I'm the dumbest guy in the room because that's what I'm learning, you know? So I think what, you know, similarly with a window film business, I mean, it might not even be another window film business, but if you can surround yourself with other business owners that are going to help you elevate your game and teach you, I feel like I'm the first person that when I've been fortunate to spend time at Vayner, I'm like a sponge. I'm just absorbing everything I can because I look at it like, hey, these guys, anything I can learn from them is positive. And the relationships I've made there, even with other agencies that they work with too, like one in Germany, my friend Sebastian owns an agency in Germany. The things I've learned from Sebastian have been super beneficial. So it's not just, you know, like, hey, look to one person and like, that's like, I think you need to surround yourself with a handful of voices that can not just, and I try to look for voices that are doing things at a level above what I'm doing them and look at it and say, what can I learn from them? Because if I'm hanging out with people that are all similar at the similar level, then we're probably all going to kind of stay at this level. You kind of need to. So, I mean, Gary's one of those people I look at and more the relationship with Vayner, because I say to people, just like you were saying about clients, I mean, the real relationships I have with Vayner are with the people that are on Gary's team. And those guys are people you probably don't know their names, but I can tell you they're phenomenal. I mean, his team, and that's who I really spend time talking to and interacting with. And, you know, and again, the reality is no matter what business you're in, I would say always be seeking out somebody that can help you take your business to the next level. Never think that I mean, if you feel like you're the smartest guy in the room, find another room.
That's very, very well said. So that's very, very well said. One of those rooms is an online room. And I do want to, I keep saying I'll jump into the comments and I just keep wanting to talk, but one of those things is the online, you know, Facebook groups. Facebook groups are rooms essentially. And, you know, we're amongst our peers and we can learn a lot from them. One of the Facebook groups is Window Film Pros. You founded that. And, you know, that's a great resource to go in for people to ask questions and read other people's questions. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, back when I started Window Film Pros, it was about 10 years ago. And actually, I started it on LinkedIn before I even started it on Facebook. A lot of people aren't aware that there's actually a LinkedIn Window Film Pros and a Facebook one. And a lot of it was just designed to create a space where we could talk. At that time, the only thing that was really out there was the Tit Dude forum. And then people were moving away from spending time in forums because you literally had to be, people were spending time on social media platforms, but to go to a forum, you had to make a specific effort to go to the forum and interact there, log in. If you wanted to ask questions or things like that, you had to log in. So there really wasn't anything that was in social media. So I sort of created Window Film Pros to sort of, quite frankly, take kind of the Tit Dude sort of space and take it to a place people were already hanging out. People were already hanging out in LinkedIn, and people were already hanging out in Facebook. So why not give them the room right where they're already hanging out rather than forcing them to go to another spot? And that was sort of what we started. Now there's a lot of, there's more groups, and I think everyone sort of serves a purpose. And, a lot of them have, a different cadence and a different voice. But I feel like anywhere you feel like that, you're getting good information and it's helping you elevate your game, wherever you feel that comfort spot is, I would say, it doesn't have to be Window Film Pros. It could be one of the other groups. But I'd say, definitely find a spot where you feel like you can interact with peers and ask questions, and you're going to get, good, solid responses and, things like that. And, again, a lot of it is just the ability to, just like what I hope we get into in the questions, is saying there's no such thing as a dumb question. I mean, I think one of the things that I'd like to see the forums, the groups sort of, settle down a little bit on is that, you always get some of the people that are like, hey, that's a stupid question, or, but everybody started somewhere. And some of the people that are in the groups, my group's called Window Film Professionals, and kind of the litmus test we use is if somebody's trying to make a living in the window film business, we'll allow them in our group. Now that might be somebody that's 6 months in and they're really learning, just like you were when you were 6 months in, or somebody else. And I feel like they might ask some dumb questions or things like that, but that's part of where they're at in the process of learning the industry. And I feel like one of the things I'd like to see not be happening in the groups as much as somebody that's been doing it for 10 years, making the guy that's been doing it for 6 months feel like an idiot for asking a question, because we were all there once. There was a time where I didn't know the difference between window tint and saran wrap. We were all there once. But so, to me, I think we just have to think about it like that.
And that's kind of the, it's like it's like the culture, the online evolution of groups in general. It's not just specific to the window film industry, and it's not specific even to just Facebook. You saw that on forums back in the day. Once the questions get asked multiple times, people have been on there answering them multiple times, they start to kind of razz the new people asking questions, and then you start with those conflicts and moderation and so on. So my advice to everybody is, if you don't want to respond to a question because you feel like it's a waste of your time or they should have searched, like, don't respond, keep scrolling, but.
Well, and in a forum, the one thing too, in a forum setting, most really well-structured forums have a very robust search function where you can search particular keywords and look at them. And there's still forums that I frequent today outside the industry, automotive forums and things like that. But it's a little bit harder to search Facebook groups and things like that. It's not, the search function isn't quite as robust and quite as finely tuned. So I kind of feel like, I sort of maybe understood a little bit of like some of those things where, in a forum, a question's been asked 100 times and somebody just doesn't want to take a moment to search the forum to see if that's been answered. But I think in social media, it's a lot more real time. Somebody's dealing with an issue right in front of them, and they just pick up their phone and tap out a question. And, it's sort of unfortunate when sometimes they get met with some really crude or some nasty responses when all they really want is some information. So
absolutely. So in an effort to get as many questions in here as possible, since there's no bad questions, please, if you haven't already, if you could share this video, share it on your Facebook page or share it into a group. That helps others get in here that may not know we're live. That helps get additional questions asked in here, and you never know what question is going to be asked that could be a game changer for your business. So let's jump into those questions. Chris Queen said, Patrick, does your marketing company focus mainly on window tinting companies or so? You touched on that. It's a variety. It's mainly window film, but a variety of others, right?
I would say in the beginning, obviously because of my relationships in the very start, we most of our clients were window film. Now I would say it's about 60% window film and 40% outside the window film business. But obviously, we're very familiar with window film, very familiar with the major manufacturers, and have good working relationships with most of the manufacturers to where, our team knows the difference between Lumar and 3M and Matico and Autobahn, and so we definitely, I think one of the advantages we have is we understand the industry. You don't have to explain to us what why somebody might want to use a dual reflective flat glass film on a home. We get it. We understand it.
I think that knowledge is absolutely critical if you're trying to market. I really feel like you can know marketing, but you have to know the product you're marketing to be able to really do it effectively. Mike Powell asked, as a small area, single man shop, what do you feel is the best or most important marketing tactic?
Well, I'll start with a couple things that are free, that don't cost you anything. Obviously, well, I shouldn't say free. I would say you need to have some basic professionally done website, something that looks good. And the reason I say that is I always tell people a website in 2020, I feel like is the equivalent of a full page ad in the yellow pages 30 years ago. I think a lot of people look at your website as a credibility piece for your business. Like they maybe have seen a piece of your marketing, whatever. They're going to look at your website and they're going to, rightly or wrongly, they're going to make a lot of judgments about the quality of your company based on what your website looks like. So you could be the best tinner in a 100-mile radius, but if your website looks like it's 8 years old and hasn't been updated, they're probably going to think that the new guy with a real flashy website might even be the better tinner because the website's giving them a different impression. So I would say, whatever your website is, just make sure it's updated and looks good. From there, let's move on to the free stuff. Right now, we're pushing a lot of our clients. Your Google My Business page is critical. Google has actually allowed you to do a lot more with your Google My Business page. And I'm amazed at how many people haven't even verified their location and done the basics. But you definitely need to, one, claim your Google My Business page, verify the address. And then I think if you spend some time, you can really, right now, put a tremendous amount of information into your Google My Business page. It's almost like SEOing your Google My Business page, for lack of a better term. The reason that's important is now, if you notice, whenever you do a Google search, even above the Google AdWords, in many cases, you see what's called the map pack. You get the results where it shows the map and it shows you some basic results. That's not driven by your website. That is driven by Google My Business pages. So if you don't have a Google My Business page that's well kept, you're not going to show up there. In many cases, somebody's #1 in organic results, but somebody that's spent a lot of time really fine-tuning their Google My Business page is showing up at the top of the map pack. They're actually showing up higher than the guy that's showing up #1 organically. So the thing I would say to Mike is, and everybody else is, before you do anything else, because it's of no cost to you, absolutely optimize your Google My Business page. After that, I would say, depending on what your budget is, I would say there's still a lot of markets where AdWords can be very effective. I think dollar for dollar, I still think it's hard to beat Facebook ads. I feel like even though they've gotten more expensive, and when I say Facebook, just please understand interchangeably. When I say Facebook, I'm talking Facebook and Instagram. I mean, you do the ad buy in the back of Facebook for both platforms. So, I would say a combination of Facebook, Instagram ads, and even if you don't have any money to spend on ads, I would say then just increase the frequency of your posts. And the other thing people don't understand about Google My Business is you can actually post to Google My Business too. And what I would say is anytime you're posting to Facebook or Instagram, be taking that content and putting it on your Google My Business page as well, because Google loves nothing more than people using its platform. The more you use their platform, the more they sort of give you, upward momentum with regard to that. The other thing I would focus on, and I know a lot of people talk about this, is reviews, but I would specifically say I would focus on Google reviews, not not specifically Yelp or Facebook. I think Google reviews are shown by some different white papers I've read and things like that. The more positive Google reviews you have, that has an impact on your SEO and where you show up. So I would say if I was going to focus on reviews, I would singularly focus on Google reviews, not necessarily some of the others. Not that I would turn down a Yelp review or a Facebook review, but I'm saying if you're going to try to make an effort to get more reviews, try to funnel them towards Google.
Absolutely. I agree with you 1,000%. And for anybody out there that says, you know, I haven't touched my Google My Business page in forever, or I've never touched it. So this is how it works. You can go to google.com, type in Google My Business page. The link will come up for you to log in. You're going to log in or reset your password. And from there, you'll see it'll be very clear what to do, where to upload pictures, where to add your services, where to add your description. And if you feel like you're not a computer person, I'll tell you, it's probably easier than using Facebook, and over 100 million other businesses have figured it out. So don't be one of those, I'm not a computer person. Go to Google, type it in, and, you know, do what you can with it, or pass it over to somebody who has the time and knowledge like Patrick and get it done. But either way, don't let it be ignored, because that is, I mean, Google My Business is game changing. Jason, go ahead.
I was just to say, it's critical. If somebody were to ask me right now, I would tell somebody if they had no budget at all, they were just like, I don't even have money to build a website, whatever. And they said, what is the one thing I can do that will have the biggest impact on my business? I would say, create a Google My Business page, verify your business, complete that, all the information, every bit that you can, and start collecting reviews.
Yep.
That doesn't cost you a dime other than your time. And I would say if somebody told me what is the one thing I can do that will have the biggest impact, I would say that. So if you're not doing that, but you're doing other things, I think you're sort of missing the boat.
Yeah. And if one of those other things is like just posting on your Facebook page, kind of mindlessly, just making a post every day without any hashtags, without any promotions or whatever, you know, that to me is just, it's a repetitive, almost waste of time versus what you just mentioned, which could bring you customers tomorrow, because one of the biggest factors with Google is location, like you said. And if somebody's close by to your business and you're on there, you're not on there, that's the difference between them being pointed to your business or them not being pointed to your business. So
absolutely. Jason
Thomas said, it's not a question, but he said, Patrick is the man. I was with him from the beginning till my health failed. I stand up for a stand-up human for sure. So Jason, I hope your health is doing better, and thank you for, you know, the kind words about Patrick.
Thank you, Jason.
Matt Blackmare said, hey guys, I just got to say it's been nice seeing Pat much more involved in Window Film Pros group with questions and projects. You know, since the new year, at least from my perspective, you have been a lot more active in there. And I got to say, some of the questions that you've asked in the Window Film Pros were like, I mean, they're just so valuable. So if you haven't been looking at those, like they're really, really great topic of conversations. I assume that's something you're going to keep up.
Absolutely. I mean, I would say, you know, I was just talking to some of my employees earlier, and I said, you know, it's kind of like the shoe cobbler's kids have no shoes. I kind of felt like for a while our business was doing really well and we were growing, and we, you know, we're certainly blessed with our business growing and it's been doing phenomenal. But I feel like we were in a position where a lot of times we were just trying to keep up with everything that was happening, and to my fault, sort of let some of the other things sort of fall by the wayside because, you know, it just didn't have time. It wasn't that I didn't want to do it or it wasn't, you know.
Right.
So I really made and I thank you, Matt, for noticing that, because I really did make an effort starting at the beginning of the new year to be like, listen, I need to re-engage in the group, and I want the group to bring value, and that's why I even reached out to you, Eric, and said, hey, these podcasts I think are beneficial if you want to post them in the group. At the end of the day, I want the group to bring as much value to the window film industry as it can. And there's times I feel like if I'm answering the same question 3 times in a given week, some of those questions you're seeing me post or me just saying, hey, if I've had that conversation 3 times this week, maybe we ought to have that conversation in the group, you know, where
Absolutely.
We can have it with 100 people, you know.
So Chris Queen said, and can you recommend a couple companies that us business owners can check out and see how they're looking on the internet? Do you have a portfolio on your website, or how does that usually go if somebody, you know, wants to see other examples of your work?
Sure. We do have a portfolio on our website. And just, I mean, and hopefully Eric will. I said to Eric when we first talked about me being on, I by no means wanted to be on this podcast to try to promote our business. You certainly can go to our website and look at the portfolio, but please, I hope everybody understands. I'm here to answer questions, do whatever we can. But I mean, I even said to Eric, I said, let's make sure that the podcast is steered in a direction where I don't want it to be promotional to, my business. And, again, not that we would want to turn any business down, but please, I don't want anybody to read this as us trying to promote what we do. So
yeah, and I mean, the reason why, first of all, Patrick definitely specifically said that was the beginning of the phone call, was I want to come on not as magnet management, not to promote the business, but to provide actionable, valuable things that people can do to benefit their business. Now, with that said, the way I look at it is, I think Patric's business is great. Everything I know about you, and from speaking with you in the past, we did a podcast at SEMA in November. Everything from speaking at you, I would definitely recommend people your way. And it's one of those things where, we can teach as much as possible, but sometimes it's better left to the professionals, because that allows you to spend your time on what you're best at, which in this case usually is tinting windows or running the business, not becoming also a marketer. We can make videos and teach people, hey, this is how you tint your own windows. But at the end of the day, a lot of people would be better off doing their job and dropping off their car or their home to get their windows tinted by the professional. So not a promotional thing, but kind of still good advice to hire somebody that knows what they're doing.
Well, I think that a lot of the clients we work with in the window film industry, I would say, are people that are very sharp people that, if they put their mind to it, could definitely understand the proper things to do and ways to properly do digital marketing. But you hit the nail right on the head. A lot of times it comes down to, if you have a given number of hours in a week, and you have the ability to do flat glass installs. Say you have the ability to hang 800 square feet of flat glass in a day at $7 a square foot, or is your time better spent doing that than spending a day a week at your shop? So I feel like a lot of what we do is not, Google's an unbelievable resource. If you're willing to spend time on Google and search, you can learn pretty much anything, for the most part, that we've accumulated over the course of me learning things over the years. And, I've aligned with people and spent a lot of time, just like window film people, fine tuning their craft. But there's nothing that's like, there's no secret sauce that you can't possibly find out. It's just a matter of spending the time. The difference is, as a business owner, or is that time well spent to spend that amount of time to really learn how to do it properly? Or you're better served like making money doing what you do really well, and paying somebody, not necessarily us, but somebody that's competent to do a good job for you. So
and those who know what to do, like yourself, know, like you said, there's no secret sauce. Typically, I find that the people who try to lead on that there's some sort of secret, and it's a secret, don't know what they're doing, and they're trying to sell the secret. Because, if you know what you're doing, you just know that you have to know it. It's not common knowledge. But once you know it, you realize a lot of people know it. It's just execution, and also knowing what's going to be next and what's going to be next. You can literally learn how to build a house on YouTube, but it doesn't mean you'd want to build your own house,
Yep. Well, and I think the other part of that, I think you touched on, is things are always changing. I mean, one of our challenges as an agency is to literally spend a decent amount of time paying attention to what is changing in the market. One of the apps I have on my phone that we're not active with a lot of our clients yet, but I'm paying a lot of attention to it, is TikTok. And it's funny that, I'm an older guy with TikTok on my phone, but it's not because I need to understand what's happening with TikTok, so that as that starts to evolve, if it does, I can advise my clients on how they may want to interact with that platform and how it may fit their business or not. The only way you can do that is to actually be on the platform and figure it out and learn it. It's not like, so I think a lot of what our business does is literally, most 80% of the time focusing on what we need to do today, 20% of the time looking at the horizon and saying, what do we need to be doing tomorrow that's different than what we're doing today? Because I'm not a fortune teller. I don't know what's coming 6 months from now, but I can guarantee you what's coming 6 months from now is going to be different than it is today. And we need to be ahead of that curve.
100%. So Patrick from Window Tinting Business Group asked, is it smart to keep your marketing budget consistent in the amount you spend or fluctuate throughout the year, depending on the season and flow of traffic?
Well, I think you have to think a lot of things like your capacity as an installation shop. I mean, I speak to some clients that are, booked 2 weeks out. And at some point in time, you start losing even somebody that's interested in your business and wants it done sooner than that. You can actually like oversell your business to the point where you're spending money to bring in leads that you can't even harvest because you're booked 2 weeks out. So I think it makes sense at certain times of the year, if you're slow, to potentially, put a little bit more money behind marketing to try to fill the pipeline back up and get work coming in. But if you're booked 2 weeks out, does it really make sense to spend just as much to keep bringing in the leads when 50% of those leads, when they find out that you're booked 2 weeks out, may go to the competitor down the street, not because they weren't sold on you, but because they don't want to wait 2 weeks. So I think you just have to be sensitive to your capacity as a business to scale. If you grow if you have the ability to grow your business, then it might make sense to spend more. But if you're at capacity, then I don't think it makes sense to keep spending when you can't capitalize on the leads that are already coming in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think that's.
I don't know if that answered Patrick's question, but so I would say I would be more an advocate of fluctuating your marketing spend based on the demand in your business. And again, you also have to take in, like, if there's a storm like ravaging the Midwest, and I have a client that's in the Midwest and they're in the middle of a horrible snowstorm to where people are going to be snowed in for a week, it probably doesn't make a lot of sense for us to dump a whole bunch of money in, even if they're slow, because for the next week people aren't going to be getting out and coming to their shop to get window tint. So I just think you have to be, again, a lot of the clients we work with have a fixed budget. So if it's like, hey, let's just pull back on the budget this week so we could double it next week when things are back to normal, I think that makes more sense than just continuing to spend methodically, even when it doesn't make sense.
Makes sense. And a lot of the ad budgets too, I'm sure fluctuate just based on demand. In those storms or during the winter, there's probably less of a demand for some of those searches. So naturally your cost per click, or the amount of clicks, if you're paying per click, goes down. So, your budget probably adjusts downward when the demand's not there. And, when it comes to organic, I feel like, organic is something that you're planting a seed for the future if you're investing in content or so on. So there's never really a wrong time to invest in organic if you have the budget. It's just one of those things that, I think it's a good mix between the two, because organic's going to take a longer time to pay you back, but probably have a bigger and longer evergreen benefit. Whereas you could starve waiting for that to fulfill itself. Whereas the ads can be more immediate, and together they fill in both spots. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that you have to always, obviously, it doesn't make any sense for us as an agency to be talking to somebody about doing long-term SEO type, building out pages on their website and things like that when they're like, listen, I'm worried about making payroll 2 weeks from now.
Right.
Then it's like, we're down to like straight right hooking. Let's get some business in the door. Right. So, we're going to shift our strategy more to a straight execution. Let's get business in the door tomorrow. Now, I do feel like, again, like you had said, there's a balance there to where you don't want to have to rely on the right hooks all the time to sustain your business. So you have to invest a little bit in the longer term stuff so that at some point in time, you're not, having to rely on sales or promotions or right hook type of tactics to get the business in. So I feel like but again, if a client were to say to me like, hey, I'm really worried, I don't have a lot booked for the next 2 weeks, and I'm worried about payroll, then as an agency, I'm going to be like, okay, we're shifting strategy. to try to get the phone ringing and get your book filled up. That's what we're going to do. So I think you have to be flexible to understand what's going on with the business and adapt your strategy to that. So
that makes sense. Maverick asked, what about NG advertising with Groupon? Yeah, have you used Groupon successfully with any of your customers, or what are your thoughts on Groupon?
We have steered clear with a lot of our clients from utilizing Groupon. I feel like Groupon 5-6 years ago was a lot more prominent than it is today. I don't feel like it wouldn't be one of the things that I would probably say would be at the top of my list for our clients. I feel like you give up a lot of margin. I feel like you could probably integrate some really savvy marketing on Facebook and things like that, and you could give up less in the form of a promotion than you'd have to give up to do a Groupon ad. So to me, I feel like it's definitely a way to fill your schedule, but you're filling your schedule with it's very costly. You're spending a lot of money in reduced price to fill your schedule, and I think there's other ways that can be just as effective without having to give up as much of your price.
And Maverick, to give you an idea, if you haven't used Groupon, you can adjust your discount and what the discount you offer and so on. But just like the rule of thumb, I think it's the default for Groupon is typically they're going to want you to offer a 40 to 50% discount on your normal price, and then they're going to give you about 40 to 50% of that remaining amount. So when you chop your price down so low, I don't think there's any way to fulfill the service at a profitable rate. And I think the idea typically with Groupon is you're banking on them being a consistent return customer, which doesn't really fit our industry as well as it does a restaurant, a nail salon, barbershop, a place you're going back over and over. Because it doesn't matter if you go in for free the first time at that point.
I agree 100% with that. I think if certain businesses, Groupon works really well because you can give them the promotion once and get them in to try the business. And then they might, if it's a barber shop, whatever, they may be back every 4 weeks to get another haircut. Or if it's a restaurant, now you become one of their favorite restaurants and they're coming back on a regular basis. We typically are seeing a customer every maybe 3 to 4 years, but even if they're thrilled with your service, you may not see them, for another couple of years. So to me, I don't feel like you get that same return. And when you do the math, like you said, let's just use a $200 tint job as an example. Let's say you're giving 40% off. So now you're down to $120, and then Groupon wants another 40% of that. So now you're down to, okay, you're getting $60, $70 for a tint job. And my point earlier was, I think if you were to run a sale boosted in a particular way on Facebook and offer your $200 tint job at $150, you could get just as much activity and you're only giving up $50 rather than $130.
And one strategy I can't vouch for this, but I in my head, I know it would work with Groupon is, if you think a comparison with a restaurant, like typically a Groupon for a restaurant, the most common would be a free like a discounted appetizer or dessert or something along those lines, or maybe even one meal, but they know you're going to be dining with multiple people. So they're able to kind of get you on the rest of the service. They're not discounting the entire service. So maybe something that would work would be if you run a Groupon for something like a windshield coating or a sun strip, because then you're discounting one part of it to get them in the door. It doesn't really matter what's a sun strip cost you. You could say it's a $50 value, you'll do it for 20, but what is it really? And once you get them in the door, now you have some options. Maybe you sell them on a paint correction or a detail or a tint job if they need it, or a windshield or whatever it is.
No, that's a good point. We really haven't went down the Groupon road as a primary strategy. And again, the other reason I feel like it was probably at its peak 5 or 6 years ago. Definitely. And I feel like it's not something people are doing is prevalent today. So that'd be another reason why that wouldn't be anything that would be like at the top of the list. For
like
us.
You touched on earlier, it's always like the attention's moving. You always have to be looking ahead. And that's where the attention was 7 years ago, 8 years ago. All the attention was there. Yep. And now the attention's elsewhere. Liz asked, I'm curious to know what 10 shops you've done marketing for, if you can answer that question, or is it private? So I think that I'm a little behind on the question. So I think that was asked before you answered. So Liz, I think you can jump on iMagnet Management. There's a portfolio there and probably follow some of the links and see who it is.
And that's actually not even an exhaust. If I were to I mean, we've probably worked with well over 200 companies in the window film industry alone, not to mention the people we've worked with outside the window film industry. So even our portfolio on our website isn't even an exhaustive list, but there's certainly enough on there for you to get an idea of what we've done.
So Jimmy Dean Velasquez asked, what do you think is more important, amount of content or quality of content?
Wow, that's a really good question, Jimmy. Because right now I feel like we're at a point in the industry where I know we've talked a little bit about Gary, and if he were sitting right here next to me, he would say, well, you need to do quality, but you also need to do quantity. And the quantity he would say, I think, would be shocking to a lot of you, because he'd probably say, it wouldn't be out of line for you to be posting 30 times a day. And that is a shocking number for a lot of people. But his philosophy is that with all the noise on the internet and with all the distraction, in order to really break through, you need to amplify the volume. But he would also come right alongside that and say, it's got to be quality too. But one of the things I've heard said, if I've heard it said a couple times, I've heard it said a lot within the halls of Vayner, is not to overthink it. I think that you can, I feel like you can get to a point where you're not doing the quantity because you're worried about every piece has to be perfect. Right. And I feel like you've got to find a balance of putting out good quality, but knowing when good is good enough and not feeling like it has to be perfect, because, I think that's one of the things that probably reduces the quantity for a lot of people, is they're so worried about having the perfect post instead of just saying, now, again, that doesn't mean just start putting out trash and just start putting out garbage posts. Right. But I'm saying, I think if you really think about the way a lot of people think about it, I think they overthink it. And I would say, follow some basics. I always say to people, like, you don't have to get the perfect picture of a house. Get a couple decent before and after pictures with your iPhone on your way in the door and on your way out of the door, and send them to me, and we'll use them. I mean, I'll crop them. I'll figure out a way to make it work. I'd rather have something than have nothing. So.
Yep. And, I was speaking with Michael Powell yesterday, and he was saying how he had a post that did exceptionally well for him on Facebook, and he didn't really know why. And he shared with me which post it was, and I instantly recognized it. Before he even sent me a picture, I remembered the post because he was describing it. And it was one where there was a lot of glare. It was almost like he took a picture looking at the sun. So it literally made me squint by looking at the picture. And obviously it got people's attention as well, because he said it was super successful. My point of this is, if you're posting once a week, you're getting one shot a week to find out what happens. If you're posting once a day, you're getting 30 shots a month to find out what happens, 7 shots a week. The more shots you take, if you're honest with yourself and you analyze it, the more opportunities you have to go, oh, something worked there, learn something, or so on. So, like you just said, go ahead.
It's a great point. I say to people, a lot of people think there's you watch shows like Mad Men and things like that, and you think that there's this, somebody's just got to be this brilliant marketing mind and come up. And there was a day and age in 60s and 70s where, and even prior to the internet, where you really did have to have some people that were really smart, really understood the market research, and had a knack for creating content that really captivated somebody's attention or something like that. However, the benefit of living in the day we do today is you can almost apply, for lack of a better term, the scientific method to marketing. You could say, okay, I don't know what's going to work. I don't know which picture is going to work. I don't know which, text is going to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push several things out there, and I'm going to let the data tell me what works, because I'm not smart enough to figure out what's going to resonate with Erik. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run what we call internally here at iMagnet, we're going to run the experiment. We're going to use our best knowledge. We're going to try to put a good piece of content together with a great piece of copy, and we're going to run it out there. But we're also going to run out additional things because we realize that we're not going to fall in love with one idea. We're going to run the experiment. We're going to let the data tell us what's working. Then we're going to modify the experiment based on what the data is telling us, and we're going to rerun it again. And we literally joke here that it's like, we just, marketing is essentially a series of just one experiment after another and just letting the data tell you how to modify. And we're fortunate that we live in a time where you can do this and the data is live. Like on the back end of Google, the back end of Facebook, you can tell within days whether something is working or not. You can pull the plug on something that's not working. You can double down on something that is. You don't have to be like, okay, I spent $5,000 for a Valpak promotion and cross my fingers. I hope that the copy was right. And I hope the pictures I used were right because I already spent $5,000 and it's a hope and a prayer that was the right ad that I put in Valpak that month or a magazine ad or whatever. With digital marketing, you don't have to do that. You could spend $20 and know whether something's going to work or not.
It doesn't have to be your Super Bowl commercial, your once-a-year Super Bowl commercial, where you go all in and wait to see.
Yeah.
So James Richardson asks a really good question, I think. Patrick, most people go for Google ads, but what about Bing and Yelp ads, especially Bing ads, Bing and Yahoo? Do you have, what are your thoughts on Yelp ads? What are your thoughts on Bing and Yahoo?
Back to something I mentioned earlier with regard to a lot of the clients we work with being small and medium-sized businesses, so they're on a more limited budget. Google right now, depending on which study you look at, equates to roughly 80+% of all internet search traffic. So I'm smart. I mean, the way we look at it is, are we potentially missing something out in Bing, Yahoo, like things like that? Potentially, but we look at it like with the budget we have to spend, I'd rather go all in on the platform that's 80% of the search traffic than worrying about maybe something I'm missing over. Now, I guess you could look at it if you had a really limited budget, maybe you could really do well on Bing where you might not be able to get as much traction on Google because there's more competition for the ads.
Right.
But I still look at it like if you're number one in a spot where nobody's looking, who cares? Well, if you're if you break it down out of 100 people, if Google's, let's say 80 and Bing is 10 and all the other ones combined are another 10, out of 100 people, 80 people are looking at Google. I like my chances of being in front of 80 people versus being in front of 10.
Yeah. Yeah. And, one of the things I found in the past was that, like you said, most of 80% or so of the traffic is on Google, but that opportunity, like you mentioned on Bing and Yahoo, then becomes, hey, you might not even be able to spend all your budget on there because there's not enough searches. But the ones that are on there, there's probably a lot less competition. You're going to find your cost per click lower. So I think it's worth it, especially if you already have a Google campaign set up. Bing allows you to import your campaign from Google AdWords, so you don't have to really do any setup. So I think it's a good one. He also mentioned, go ahead.
I do agree with the one thing you said that I think is key, though, like you had mentioned, if you're already doing Google, doing Bing as an add-on to that, I would agree with you 100% there. But I'm saying in general, a lot of the clients we work with, they're working on a limited budget. So it's like a matter of, I would never recommend somebody doing Bing instead of Google. Right. If they want to do Bing on top of Google, I would say, yeah, let's talk about that. But I wouldn't say, take money out of Google and put it into Bing. I wouldn't do that. Okay.
And then as far as Yelp goes, I mean, my thoughts on Yelp are a little, I think Yelp is one of those where like Yelp ads become valuable if you have to have a good profile. However, if you're a new profile and you run ads, you're going to get nothing out of it because they're going to see your profile. They're going to see you're new on Yelp. That's not why Yelpers check Yelp. They check Yelp for experience, to read other people's reviews and so on. Now, if you blow your competition out of the water, you have 500 Yelp reviews, everybody else has 10, you're probably not going to get that big of a value from a Yelp ad either because those Yelpers are probably finding you because you stand out. So I feel like Yelp ads are good if you're kind of in the middle and you're saying, well, I want to grow my, I want to try to get in front of more Yelper so I can grow that Yelp and I can kind of push myself above. What's your experience with Yelp ads?
I got to watch so I don't get myself in trouble. I'm talking about Yelp. I feel like Yelp is, without saying something super like negative about Yelp, I feel like it's very expensive, I think, for what you get for it. If you really break it down to a return on investment for what you're spending with Yelp, it tends to be expensive. I feel like somebody should have a Yelp profile fully built out. Everything you can do on the free side of Yelp, I think you should do. I feel like once you went down the road of actually paying Yelp, I feel like, at least my experience with some of our clients has been that it feels like that, you sort of, it's kind of like going to the chiropractor. It's like once you're in, you better stay in, because it's like you can't get out. Like almost if you pay for Yelp and then you pull out, it almost seems like your results get worse than if you never paid to begin with. And again, I don't have anything scientific to say, and I'm certainly not claiming anything about Yelp. I don't want to get a call from somebody at Yelp, but I would recommend all of our clients have a fully built out Yelp profile, everything they can do for free. But we usually don't recommend that they spend money on Yelp ads.
Okay. Andrew asked, Pat, I need advice. I've traded services with 2 different SEO marketing companies, in quotations, in the last 5 years, and I still get emails daily selling the same. You're missing this previous one. You're missing this that previous ones did. Am I just giving out free tint jobs? I got lost on that one. All right. I've traded services with 2 different SEO marketing companies in the last 5 years, and I still get emails daily selling the same, and then in quotes, you're missing this that previous ones did. Am I giving out free tint jobs? I'm not sure what you mean, Andrew. I'm
assuming he's talking about like, one, you have to understand that no matter who you're with or however good a job that agency's doing, there's a whole host of spam out there that's going to tell you, the way they get their foot in the door is tell you that, hey, we've scanned the internet and looked at your website and you're missing X, Y, and Z. And in most cases, those types of posts or those types of emails are an effort for them to get their foot in the door and realize, okay, if they can get their foot in the door and start talking to you, they typically can find, it's like a mechanic that you go in for the $9.99 oil change and they find out that you need new struts on your car. They're banking on the fact that if they can just get you in and start looking at something, they can find something else to sell you. So I would say, without knowing about the other 2 companies you're working with, a lot of times those emails, I'm not saying every time, but a lot of times those emails are spam based. I know our agency never scans the internet for companies to send out emails and say, most reputable companies I know aren't fishing for business that way. So right off the bat, I'd be a little bit concerned if that's how somebody's reaching out to you. That being said, I feel like, I always look at the practical side of, and if you ask anybody that's a client of ours, they'll tell you, I'm like, I don't really care what the numbers are. I don't really care what, the stats say or anything like that. At the end of the day, the practical results are, is your phone ringing more? Are you getting more leads on your website? Are you getting emails for quotes? Is business coming in the door? Is that, were you getting, 3 leads a day before and now you're getting 5? Well, there's a tangible increase. So to me, I feel like a lot of times somebody will get too caught up on the numbers and point at something just to kind of get somebody concerned that they're not working. I would say the best way to evaluate your current marketing company is the needle moving in the direction you want it to move, which is your business growing? Are you getting more leads or things like that happening? And if so, don't get so bogged down on the different numbers and the different stats that you lose sight of the fact that the end goal is for me to get you more phone calls, me to get you more leads, things like that.
Right. That's 100% agree.
If I do a Facebook post, I don't really care how many people like the Facebook post. If the click-through rate is good, and I know people that are clicking through and going to the website, a decent chunk of those are turning into filled out contact forms and leads, I don't really care if 50 people liked the post. If 50 people liked the post, but 10 people clicked through to actually read the article, I'd rather have 5 people like the post and 50 people click through to read the article. I mean, that, you know, I'm trying to get people on the website to convert them to a potential lead. So I don't really try to get, that's why I said a lot of people, I think, get too caught up in looking at the outward appearance of what's happening and lose sight of the fact that what you're really trying to do is the end result should be that your business should be growing.
Right. Anybody telling you they're going to add more followers to your page is probably going to try and add more followers to your page, and you're probably going to lose your money and not get any return from it. Because that's a common hook these days is we can add more followers to your Facebook page, and that and those emails, like you said, they're run by automated programs for fish. They're basically phishing. They can send out it's the modern day telemarketer. That's what that is. Okay. Yep. So they're fishing for the one person to respond and say, oh no, what should I do? And like Pat said, they have you from there. So Louis asked, Pat, are you rocking the new Gary V K-Swiss sneakers?
I am not. I do have Gary V sneakers, but I don't have the Gary V5, if that's what you're referring to yet. And primarily because I just I've got a kind of I wouldn't say I'm a minimalist by any stretch of the imagination, but I've got kind of my set right now, and they're all in good shape. So I just haven't needed to replace one of them since he's come out with the new Gary V5. But I do have some of the Clouds and Dirt sneakers, and I like them, and they're comfortable. But and you know, I've got plenty of bottles of Empathy wine at my house as well, but no Gary V number 5s yet.
Matt Blackmer said, dedicated cameras are better, but social platforms compress everything to the point where it doesn't matter. And I think that's accurate. I mean, Matt knows his stuff. And, you know, at the end of the day, once you post it online, the quality is not going to be there. I feel like I see it the most with like Instagram. Take a beautiful video, post on Instagram. It doesn't quite look as beautiful as it did.
Exactly.
So going through the questions, for anybody who joined us a little bit late, we are doing a giveaway today, a signed book of Gary V's Crush It that Patrick brought along. And you can enter simply by asking a question in the comments. Currently, we have a list of about 39 entries already from all the questions that's been asked. So if you have a question, now's the time to ask it. And then at the end of the live stream, we'll be on screen picking a random person to win that book. Jimmy Dean Velasquez asked, what about content that doesn't necessarily contain pictures or video of working on the car or finished product, more so to inform and educate potential customers?
So are you saying just, am I reading it or am I listening to it like that it would just be a written post? It wouldn't have a picture or anything to go along with it? Is that kind of what he's saying? I'm not. I just want to make sure I understand the question. Yeah,
Jimmy, if you could clarify that, if you're saying, you know, no picture, video, if you're just kind of speaking to the idea of trying to educate the customer instead of, I guess, I mean, you always have the opportunity to educate the customer within your content. So even if you're showing the finished product, you can still educate the customer as to what the finished product is. I think the pictures and videos are there to get your attention, essentially.
I was going to say, I mean, one of the things I would say is I certainly feel like if you have a really strong following that follows your posts, you could definitely get away with doing just text that's really solid text. But I do feel like if you're trying to grab somebody's attention, having a good quality picture, you know, the people at Facebook, when I've talked to them, refer to it as a thumb pause moment. And that means, I guess, if you think about the way you're on Instagram and the way you're on Facebook, you're scrolling with your phone and you're usually using your thumb and you're scrolling up. And typically from the bottom of the screen to the top of the screen is less than a couple seconds. So for just text to cause somebody to pause, pause the screen roll with their thumb is tough to do. So I'm not saying it can't happen. And a lot of times when that works for somebody is if you have a really good name and people really follow you. Like Gary could get away with posting just text and people would see his profile and they would still stop to see what Gary has to say about something. But in general, I would say the average shop is well suited to either put a good quality image or a video, something that's going to, and the other thing while I'm touching on this, a lot of times when you're scrolling, if you upload a video to Facebook or to Instagram, they give you the ability to choose the cover picture of the video. Like, and a lot of times somebody's video starts out with a black screen. And a lot of times if you don't select anything, you know, you're going to see a black screen before the video starts to roll. So one of the things just a practical tip I would say is if you ever upload a video, take a moment to go in and edit and choose the screen capture that you want to use as the cover photo. And if you don't find one that's already preloaded in there that you like, watch the video and take your own screen capture, and you can upload that and manually make that the screen capture. Because as people are scrolling through, you may only get the opportunity for somebody to see your cover photo before they're past you. So if that cover photo isn't showing the part of the video that you really want to draw attention, they're going to be past you before you even get a chance. So
that especially happens on Instagram. You go on people's profiles and you just see a black square. And it's like a mystery video. All right, let's see. But most
if you don't know how to do that, because we talked about getting super practical, just go into your post and click edit. In Instagram, it allows you to trim the video. It allows you to choose the cover from. It'll allow you to scroll through the video and actually choose the picture that you want to be the cover. And then it'll show that momentarily and then start your video from the beginning. Facebook allows you to do the same thing. You just go into the edit and you can actually choose. It'll give you the option to choose the cover. It's very simple to do. And I would say it's something that, you know, it's just one of those, just don't make that mistake. If you're going to take the time to upload a video, take a couple extra seconds to do that. And I think you'll find that you get better response to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see, looking for some questions. Jimmy was saying he owes so much to the groups. Mitchell Goldman, he said, good to finally see the man behind the face. Yeah, and I mean, that's one of these, like, again, I've been saying on the last few videos, like, one of the things that's just amazing is like, hey, I get to sit here and chat with you. I get to know you better. I mean, you know, our interaction's been limited, and I really appreciate that. So thanks for doing this. And, you know, I think everybody will see tremendous value of getting to know everybody in the industry instead of it just being a little avatar and some text. So it kind of goes.
I think that's one of the benefits. I know you talked about. I've seen a recent video you've mentioned, like being part of all the groups and going to the industry events and things like that, going to manufacturers events. And I think the benefit of that is, I think when you're dealing with a group, a lot of times, you know, it's easy for somebody to say a snarky comment or berate somebody online or whatever, when it's just somebody that they know online, they've never met them. But I think the whole dynamic of the relationship changes once, once you have a chance to interact with somebody. And I know for, me personally, I feel like, once I have a chance, the whole dynamic of the relationship changes, even if there's only a 5-minute face-to-face interaction. I know you and I had interacted online, but we hadn't really spent any time face-to-face until the SEMA show in Las Vegas. And I feel like, that was like a moment where our relationship completely changed just based on spending a little bit of face-to-face time with somebody. And I feel like the benefit of those events is that you have a chance. Most of the time, if you have a bad feeling about somebody in general, it's probably not as bad as you perceive it to be if you actually spent some time talking to somebody. And a lot of times there's just a miscommunication. It's hard sometimes in a comment to get tone across and inflection across. And I think sometimes comments are read in a way that maybe it wasn't how the person that posted it intended. So I feel, like things like this give us an opportunity to talk. It gives an opportunity for people to see you, see me. And I think it puts it in a different light, and it becomes more personal than just, a profile picture and comments being written.
100%.
So
Mike Powell said, I've tripled from Google in 60 days, but Facebook post with a boost has been key. And then Adam said, Google My Business is key, coming from a one-man band. Let's see. Looking for questions. A lot of great comments in here. I'm just looking for. the questions. So Mitchell Goldman asked, I've heard rumors that Pat started the Window Tinters United group. Can he confirm or trash these rumors? Simply yes or no would be nice without getting into detail.
Absolutely not. I mean,
Okay.
I started the Window Film Pros group in LinkedIn and Facebook, and I also started while I was at Interwest. I started automotive film professionals, and I started paint protection film professionals. Both of which, because I was under employment of Interwest at the time, they retained ownership of those groups because I was working for them at the time. I do have two other groups, Car Film Pros and Vehicle Film Pros, too, that sort of reach out to people that are in the wrap industry and things like that, as well as Window Film. But I've never had any affiliation with Window Tinters United.
So Jason Thomas said, Patric Fransko has helped us grow 25% the first year. We love our sites, and I can't wait to get back to working with him on some updates, looking at TintWiz software as well. So somebody had previously asked if anybody in the group had worked with you. So Patric chimed in there. And Ricardo said, meta tags and meta descriptions in website. Is this something that is only important for certain URLs within the, I think the W meant website. So meta tags and meta descriptions on websites.
I feel like anytime you're putting content on a website, SEO, I'll preface it by saying SEO is not a silver bullet.
Right.
SEO is doing 100 small things properly, not doing one thing. You know, a lot of people, we were talking earlier about the secret sauce. A lot of people make it seem like there's this magic behind SEO. SEO is pretty straightforward. It's doing 100 small things properly. I feel like meta descriptions and meta tags are some of those things. If you're creating a piece of content or a page on your website, you want to turn over every rock you can to extract the most value you can. In and of themselves, if you do a meta description, is that going to be the night and day difference of whether that works or not? No, but I feel like if you've got the opportunity to do a meta description, you should do it. Same thing with pictures. If you have a picture on your website, you have the ability to put an alt tag on that picture. Is using an alt tag on a picture going to make or break whether that piece of content does well or not? No, but if you have the ability to do it, again, it's one of those things where it's doing 100 small little things like tags, meta descriptions, alt tags, all those things properly. And if you do all those things, the combination of all those things is what equals good SEO. So I kind of feel like, you know, that's one of the things, though, that I would say, don't get caught up with it, where a lot of marketing companies might say, oh, you know, you really need our help because we scanned your website and you're missing all your meta tags and things like that. And that's just understand that some of those things might have a small incremental effect on how effective but a lot of times, you know, the reason I preface that is a marketing company could use that in a negative way to make you think your website's all fouled up, when the reality is you're just missing a couple small crumbs that, yeah, it would benefit you to have them, but it's not like your website's garbage without it.
No.
You know,
and most of the time when they're saying you're missing a bunch of stuff on your website, they didn't even check your website. They're just trying to get you to respond. So I think what you just said was all correct. Definitely don't let that be your hook into using a service. But, you know, if like you said, if you're there already, you're uploading the picture to your website, adding the alt tag takes a second, do it, because those little things do help. Jesus Ramirez asked, what percentage of posts should be paid promotional ads?
What percentage of posts? Like, I'm assuming you talk about like a Facebook post or an Instagram post.
Yeah.
I think it comes down to what you're, you know, what you're trying to achieve with the post. We kind of internally refer to posts. Some posts as like anchor posts, and some posts as filler posts. So anchor posts are posts where we've got a piece of content on the website, and the goal of that post is to drive people back to the website in an effort to educate them at a deeper level and try to convert that into a filled out contact form or something of that nature on the website. Filler posts are like in addition to an anchor post, you may put a couple posts in to where you just want, it's kind of like, hey, I'm still here. Hey, here's a job we're working on and things like that. I don't think it's necessary that where you would necessarily promote every filler post you're putting out there. I think some of that is just keeping you out there and keeping you in front of people. I do think if you're going to take the time to create an anchor post, it does make sense to promote that post and drive people back. A lot of times what we do now is we will create an anchor post and then create a variety of filler posts around it designed to point back at the anchor post, if that makes sense. So we're taking one piece of content that probably took spent some time on creating the copy and things like that, but we're getting the most mileage we can out of it by creating some filler posts that point back at that. So to answer your question, Jesus, I would say if it's a post you've spent some time on and you really want to drive activity and put eyeballs on that post, I would say spend the money. If it's just a post to show, check out this Honda Accord we tinted today, I'm not so sure I would spend a lot of money. Now, what I would do with that picture of the Honda Accord on Instagram, I would absolutely spend time to hashtag it properly. On Facebook, I would absolutely spend time to, geotag the location and find areas where maybe a lot of times we've even, like if it's a Honda dealer that you've done work for, like tagging the Honda dealer in the ad and things like that, because sometimes the Honda dealer would potentially reshare your post on their page and things like that. So I think there's things you can do without paying that still could potentially accelerate accelerate how many people are going to see the post without actually having to spend money.
What a great what a great example you just gave, because, like you said, just tagging yourself, like if you did work at a Honda dealer, or if you're doing a Honda and it came from a dealer and you tag yourself at that dealer, well, what happens is, or you check in at that dealer with that picture, what happens is there's going to be people who are going to that dealer to buy a car that day. They're going to check, let's see, who else checked in, or let's see the pictures from, this dealer. And you're there, like you're getting in front of very targeted people, because who really checks pictures of car dealers other than people who are interested in buying a car? And those people need to.
I'm actually amazed at how many times when we've utilized that strategy that the car dealer, who's a multi-million-dollar company, will actually like the post and oftentimes reshare the post because you tagged them in it. And that's just getting you extra eyeballs on your post for free. It takes you literally 5 seconds to tag the dealership, and you just basically accelerated the number of people that are going to see your post by doing that.
They're thirsty for content too, so they want to share anything that can come their way as well. So Brian said, solid guy, love working with Patric. They helped us establish our online presence and branding. We've grown the business sales 50% each year the last 2 years. Thank you, Patric. So that's Brian's testimonial.
Who was that? Brian
Haas. Yep.
Brian out at Elite. Thank you, Brian, for the kind words.
So
I thought I saw one come through from about residential and commercial posts. I'm not sure, though. Did you see that one roll across?
Not yet. I'm going in order. I think I'm staying in order.
Okay.
And if I miss anybody and you can tell that I went out of order or I passed it, please feel free, ask the question again. But in order, Jason Thomas said, has Google changed the rules for advertising in remote areas where we don't have a hard address like in another business town we cover? That has always been an issue securing that.
I don't think they've changed the rules if you're paying. I think if you're paying, you can run your ads anywhere you want them to. I think where they've really cracked down on things is we were talking about they're putting increased emphasis on Google My Business pages, and I think they're getting more strict on what they're allowing to qualify as an actual location, so that you don't have somebody that essentially creates like in an area where it's maybe a more country type setting where there's bigger distances, where a shop might have been able to like procure 8 different Google My Business pages in the past because they found an address to send the postcard to verify it. I think Google's getting better about figuring out which ones of those addresses aren't legitimate places of business and things like that. So I don't think it's if you're paying Google to say, hey, we want to reach this area, it's just a matter of putting that area in the location and they'll take your money. I mean, they'll let you run the ad there, but it's more on the free side with, I think specifically where they're cracking down a lot is Google My Business. And they've really, even like where somebody might go to a UPS store or something like that and just buy like that address and like submit that to Google. Google's got really good at fishing those out, and a lot of times they'll refuse to allow you to claim that as a business.
The value of doing that tactic, I feel like, has diminished, like you said, because you could get away with that 5 years ago, but now you're going to invest in building that fake location, and when Google takes it down, you're going to lose all the reviews. And then even riskier, if you have your legitimate location tied to those fake locations and they flag them, sometimes they'll flag your whole account, and it could take you quite a while to get your regular business going back. And when you instantly disappear from those Google spots, those local spots, you instantly start missing out on a lot of phone calls. So I think stick to the rules and don't try to set up fake locations, and it works in the long term. Mike Powell asked, how do we know what the best vid or pick or whatever to boost and promote more? What do we reach in those videos or content or whatnot? So basically, how would Mike know which pictures to promote, which videos to promote, and which ones not to?
Well, this goes back to what we were talking about earlier in the example I used of a science experiment. If you have a variety of posts that you think are strong that you might be considering boosting, why not put a small budget behind all of them and run them out there and let the data speak to you? You're going to find that one you spent $10 on, and you got if you're trying to drive people through or clicks, or if it's a video or watches, put them out there and put a little bit of budget behind it, and then watch the results on the back end of Facebook. You can look at the results and see what's performing and what's not. This one might be getting, cost per click might be 15 cents, and this one's cost per click is $1.30 because it's just not resonating. Mm-hmm. Then you kind of you watch the data. So rather than try to be an expert at picking what is the best piece of content, if you have 5 pieces of content that you all think are strong, that you think all of those are strong, my feeling would be put a small amount of money behind all 5 of them, let them run for a couple days and look at the data, and then remove the budget from the ones that aren't performing and put it against the ones that are performing.
And that's perfect advice. Mike, one of the things the real big guys out there do, and I'm not suggesting you're not, because this is probably something you do, but what I'm saying is it's not necessarily common knowledge, is, you can make advertising posts on the back end of Facebook that only get seen to the group you target. So what a lot of bigger companies do when they're really trying to put out paid content that hits is they're actually putting out multiple versions of the same ads with different text, slightly different pictures, and so on. They're testing which ones respond first. Then they're going out and posting that to the public and saying, and putting that ad spend behind it. So they already know which resonates with that audience and is getting that exposure on Facebook or Instagram before they even do that. So I think the real world application, Mike, would be when, like Patrick said, put a little money behind all 5 of them, see which ones do the best, and then keep putting money behind the ones doing the best. Because if you find that you made a post a month ago that is just killing it and you just keep getting messages, there's not really a big reason to stop spending money on that ad.
Absolutely.
Keep that ad going. Don't look to the next.
I absolutely agree. I think a mistake a lot of people make with marketing is sometimes for whatever reason, a certain picture and a combination of picture and text just work, and it just resonates with people, and it works. I think a lot of people get in the mindset that they've got to have something new the following week to run. And it's like, I'm a big believer, and I'm not saying you don't put what we talked about a little bit earlier, like a filler post in, like something new. But if you've got an ad that's killing it, I'm a big believer. Ride that horse until that horse stops running. I mean, to me, you may have a post that does well for you for 6 months. I mean, to me, it's like, if you have something that is really working well for you, don't just because it's 2 weeks old feel like you've got to move on to something new. I mean, but keep an eye on it. You'll see the performance start to degrade, and then pull the dollars when you see it degrade. But if you are really killing it with a post, don't think just because it's 2 weeks old, like, oh, it's run its course, I need to move on to something new. Ride that horse as long as you can ride it.
So Liz said every business is different. What works for some might not work for others. I think you should apply your knack and find your knack and apply it to your business. Definitely, one of the things Gary Vee says is double down on your strengths. And there's a lot of different ways to cook a steak, and they can all be delicious at the end. Find the way that works for you and fits your taste and works.
Yep.
So let's see. Looking for questions. A lot of great comments, but I'm skipping over them only to read the questions, just because an hour and 45 minutes has passed, and I feel like if I read every comment and if I interject my own thoughts into all these, we'll be here until tomorrow, and I don't want to do that to anybody.
I made a promise that we wouldn't hit the 3-hour mark, so let's honor. I made a point to say there's not possibly something I could talk about for 3 hours. So.
Robert Nelch asked, what do you guys have to say about those that underbid so far that it changes the standard price in an area?
You're saying underbid like what they're selling the product for?
Yeah.
We're not talking about ads. We're talking about
yeah.
Okay. I mean, I feel like you sort of touched on this in the last response. I feel like you really have to understand your business, and you have to determine the lane that you're going to run in and create. You have to create a value that separates yourself from the crowd. We have clients that are in a market where there's a very price conscious consumer or very price conscious shop that really undersells it, and they've created a reputation for themselves such that, like, literally within less than a mile from another shop, they're getting almost double the amount of money for an equivalent job.
Right.
I shouldn't say an equivalent job from a quality standpoint, but a basic tint job. They're getting twice the amount of money because they built that reputation. I feel like you really have to understand, to your answer to Liz, you really have to understand what your business is about and what you stand for and what you do well, and build your offering to surround that.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you don't need to be aware of what the competition is doing, but I don't think that you let what the competition is doing dictate how you run your business.
Yeah, I don't think any competition.
I'm not trying to cop out on to cop out on the answer. It's just,
I agree with you. I
know that could be tough, though.
I don't think there's any, unless you're in a community of like 50 people, I don't think that there's any business that's actually changing the standard price in the area. That just comes down to your perception. So what's probably happening there is you need to take a step back and say, am I even getting enough customers? Maybe the problem is I'm only attracting, a budget customer, or maybe my service is in line with their customer. So that's why I'm being outsold. But I can tell you from personal experience that, when I had a flat glass company, we were going in there and we were always $10, $12, $14, $15 a square foot. And there was always somebody in there at $4, $5, $6 a square foot. And that didn't change anything. That set us further apart. And I always felt that if we tried to race to the bottom and meet them at 7 or 8, we're going to be in the similar boat, and then they're going to get the job. But when we were maintaining our price, maintaining our quality service, quality products, and so on, we would get those price conscious customers calling us back and saying, can you explain to me the difference, why I was able to get this quote for $6 and not 12, and yours is for 12 a square foot, and so on, and you still win the jobs. Now, if you're not winning those jobs, you have to take a step back and go, is there a difference in my business than the other person's business? And if there isn't, you have to look to ways to add value to your business and add value for the customer. But usually what I think it is you're not getting enough leads. You're simply not getting enough leads. And if you kind of are getting that bottom of the barrel leads, then it can feel like you're just getting those price shoppers, and it can be perception.
The other part I would say to that too is, in all my experience in 20 plus years in the industry, and with all the clients we work with across the United States in the industry, I can't think of a single customer that I know that is running a very successful business and doing well and growing that is the price option in their marketplace. I can't think of a single one where the reason they're growing their business is because they're matching or at the bottom of the price structure.
Right.
Usually the companies that we're working with that are growing are the ones that are, everybody's at $5 a square foot and they're at $7.50. And people are like, how in the world? Those are the companies I feel like over time are the ones that are actually succeeding and growing. I'm grappling to just try to think of a single situation where the price option has actually been the company that's succeeding in a marketplace. I can't think of any.
You're chopping your legs off by doing that, because when you are competing on price, guess what? You're not going to be able to afford a quality film because you have to get the best price film. You can't afford to hire people because you have to keep every dollar for yourself. You can't afford marketing because if you do that, well, there's not going to be any money left. So you're literally chopping off your hands and feet if you race to the bottom on price. So you have to factor in marketing, and you have to factor in staff, and you have to factor in savings for the company, and then you're able to kind of have everything, you know, working properly. So let's see. Got some. I'm looking for the question.
By the way, while Eric is looking at questions, I just want to say, I mean, I know we've been going at this for a while. Thank you, everybody that's like watching, asking questions, things like that. I hope you guys are finding value in this. I know it's a Thursday night and it's getting late in some of the areas of the country. And the fact that you would want to even listen to anything I have to say, I'm grateful for, and thank you for watching. So
I echo those thoughts. I know taking an hour, 2 hours out of your day is pretty freaking awesome. So I appreciate that. And if you ever miss this live, you can always listen to it on YouTube, you can listen to it on iTunes, Google Podcasts, and so on. On that topic, while I look for other questions, you have the Window Film Pros podcast. That's actually where you could listen to one of the podcasts you and I did together. You can find that on iTunes. Yep. And if you want to speak a little, just while I look for a question, speak a little more to where people can find the Window Film Pros content that you put out.
Sure. I mean, Window Film Pros, if you go to... if you go to the group, there's a Window Film Pros podcast, and there's a website that is more consumer based, where we have a dealer locator that we're really trying to spread consumer awareness and connect somebody that's interested with a dealer in their area. The podcast is on, if you just look up the Window Film Pros podcast, it's on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play. Even I'm surprised, even when I Google, sometimes Google search it, it's on podcast platforms that I never even submitted it to. So if you just type into Google Window Film Pros podcast, it's probably on whatever platform that you listen to podcasts on. And there's a variety of podcasts with different people in the industry, from manufacturers to installers and a lot of people in between.
So Patrick Boyer from the window tinting business asked, I think, a great question. Considering that Facebook owns Instagram, is it better to go straight to Facebook, considering they're the big brother?
Straight as far as ad buy, or what does he mean by going straight to Facebook?
So good question. If one possible interpretation would be, should you just spend the budget on Facebook instead of Instagram, or Instagram instead of Facebook? The way I interpreted it was, would it be better to run your ads from Facebook or go through the Facebook? I'm sorry, to run your ads straight from Instagram, or to use the back end Facebook ad manager to run your Instagram ads?
I would recommend to anybody that's running any ads on Facebook or Instagram to run those ads from the back end of Facebook in what's called the ads manager.
Right.
It gives you a lot more control over your ads. There's no benefit to running your ads from inside of Instagram. I think you actually give up some options that you would potentially have within Ads Manager. I would say one thing, if you take away anything from this talk, never just go to the bottom right of your post and hit boost and put $50 behind something and just boost it. That's a waste of money. You may get likes and things like that, but it's not an efficient way to do. You may even, it's like doing just a huge shotgun blast, and you're just throwing your content out there and hoping that it maybe hits the right person. You can much more efficiently do your ads by creating specific audiences that the piece of content is going to resonate with. We do, as an agency, we have the back-end agency access to Ads Manager. We do all ad buying for both Facebook and Instagram through Ads Manager. We don't do any ad buying right through the Instagram platform.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. what you just said. I agree 100%. I think you could find results from just hitting boost on your Facebook. If you're doing like automotive or flat glass and you go 10-mile radius, you might get some response. With that said, the magic is completely in the ad manager. So to give you an example on Instagram, when you go to Instagram, you can pick male or female, you can pick age, you can pick surroundings like around your business, and you can pick like certain keywords or targets like interests that they give you there. Now, if you just take a minute and go into your Facebook ad manager and you look at Instagram, they let you break things down by people who engaged with your Instagram post, people who liked it, people who sent you a message on Instagram. There's so many micro ways to break down and target Instagram through your ad manager that you don't even know exist if you're stuck on Instagram boost. So I agree with that completely. Liz said, I have to disagree. Both are equally important. I'd rather have 50 people that like Facebook posts than their friends see the posts like you and get more recognition from your business leads to potential customers. That's how I see it. Well, there's certainly a value to engagement. It's just not necessarily a measure of success, because ultimately that engagement, if it does lead to, you know, people following your page, then you can target them plus their friends. They can see that their friends like it. That certainly adds credibility.
Sure.
But just as a level, yeah.
I agree. I don't disagree with you, Liz, that it's good to have what I was referring to. It's not that it's a bad thing to have likes. What I guess I was referring to is if you have a post that gets 200 likes, but it doesn't produce any business, to me, I would rather have a post that gets 15 likes and actually produces a lead. You know, right. So I think sometimes, like I said, the true judge of whether a post does well or not is, does it generate any business, not does it generate a lot of likes. Now, obviously, right, if you have a decent amount of likes, and that means more eyeballs get on the post because their friends see that they liked it and things like that, hopefully that's going to turn into business. If you have 200 likes and that turns into a bunch of leads, great. My point was, don't focus on the likes. The end goal is what the focus should be. Is it generating business or not? Right. If a marketing company is routinely getting you a ton of likes on Facebook and Instagram, but it's not making your phone ring, who cares? What's the point?
Right. So David Rosenberg asked, is there something to learn from the local and global internet phone book performance-based dashboard results they email me, like Haibu or Yellow Pages? Could it be inaccurate information?
I feel like, and I'll just, anything like I said, I want to make sure everybody, I don't want to ever like BS an answer or anything like that. I feel like some of the stuff I've looked at with like Yellow Page data and Haibu data sometimes is not necessarily 100% accurate like representation. But I would be honest in saying that it's like I haven't delved into those two things at such a degree that I would want to 100% say it's worthless or it's valuable. So when I don't know something, I'd rather just tell you I don't really know. You know, it's not something we pay a lot of attention to. A lot of what we're looking at is just the stuff that's you know, right in front of us. So I'm not looking at, you know, again, we know if what we're doing is working or not because I'm talking to my clients and saying, is your phone ringing more? Are you booking jobs and things like that? So, you know, if that's happening, I really don't care what the Haibu report says. You know, if my client's doing well, right, I don't really care what the Haibu report says.
Yeah. Maverick said or asked, where can I learn more about different glass, double pane, single pane on houses, commercial, what type of film to use and so on? Do you think, I mean, Window Film Pros is obviously a resource. The Facebook group.
As far as what you can use, I'm thinking he's maybe referring to like film to glass charts and things like that. So it maybe doesn't break, you know, thermal crack a window. I mean, at least my experience is that, you know, a lot of the manufacturers can give you a lot of guidance. Whoever you're utilizing, I would talk to your rep and say, hey, I need to know whether these films are safe to put on certain types of glass. As far as, you know, again, as far as what to put on, what windows, what's going to work, again, if you're relatively new to that particular product or whatever, I would lean on your rep or somebody else that uses the product, ask them what their experience is. A lot of it, I feel like, comes down to if you've been using a product for a while and the customer explains what their issue is and you see what type of glass it is, a lot of it's just knowing, like, I've done this 100 times before. I know this product will be a good match. And I don't know that there's any way to really consolidate that down into a piece of paper as much as it is just experience with the product. But as far as filming the glass charts and making sure you don't overstress the glass and break it, I would say whoever's film you're using should have a chart that guides you on that, for sure.
And if they don't, that should be a red flag. You might want to carry a different flat glass film, because your manufacturer knows their films in and out. They're going to be the ones that are behind the warranty if that glass breaks and so on. So that ultimately should be where you go. Rick Tallman asked, Patrick, do you think ultimately it comes down to direct person relationships? How important are direct person relationships in 2020, would you say, when it comes to, I guess, generating leads?
Well, I guess I was thinking when you were asking it a different direction. I think personal relationships are potentially more important now than they've ever been. I think in a day and age when everything is going digital, I feel like, there's still ultimately, the old saying, people do business with people, I think has never been more true. I think, we have a lot more ways to reach people and to get in front of a lot of people. But ultimately, when it comes down to it, I think the personal relationships, I'll use my own business as an example. I mean, we do digital marketing. That's what our company does. I'm fortunate in the fact that we're a marketing company that doesn't hardly do any marketing for our own company, because almost all the business that comes to our way is a result of personal relationships and referrals. So my own business is a reflection of the value of personal relationships. When I go to SEMA or when I go to WFCT, to me, although we have a booth at WFCT and things like that, I don't go to those shows at any of them with the mindset that I'm going to close business or sell somebody something. It's all about being in front of people, seeing people, shaking hands, renewing relationships with people I haven't seen in a while, things like that. Because to me, I feel like that is actually what's going to probably have a bigger impact on your business. And so much more so even for a localized business. Like, we do business with people all across the country. But if you're a localized business doing business in a given market, I feel like get out to different events where you can interact and meet more people and them know you and know what you do, whether that's a dad's club at your kid's school, whether it's, the JCs or, I think there's a benefit to being out there. And I think it's kind of swung one direction in the last 10 years and it's swinging back the other direction, where I feel like personal relationships are more valuable now than they have been in a while. I would say you would get a lot of return on your investment of getting out there and getting in front of people, for sure.
So Adam Esco asked a interesting one. He said, Patrick, you've got $50 and 10 seconds to decide. Off the top of your head, what are you going to do to promote TintWiz and go? Is there anything that you can think of with a $50 budget off the top of your head? Or I guess free? $50 is basically free.
I mean, first of all, I will say, and I'm not just saying this because I'm on his podcast, I think you've done a great job of being out. I think this is a great example of something that you're doing to be in front of people and to, without promoting TintWiz. This actually harkens back to the last question too. Even though you're not face to face, you're being in front of people, and I think that's benefiting you. I mean, for $50, somebody gave me $50 right now, I would probably do a very targeted ad buy against an industry-specific group on an offer for tint, because $50 against a group of 8,000 people would actually go a decent amount of ways. So I'd probably spend the $50 to specifically promote a piece of content to a very targeted audience of people that would actually be users of your product.
I think that's obviously great advice. It's something, if everybody probably, hopefully sees our Facebook posts, and they probably see them as sponsored. And the reason I do that is because, like Patrick said, we do have a very targeted group of people that may be interested in TintWiz. And by promoting those posts, that enables me to ensure that Facebook's going to get that post in front of you. If and like you said, those posts, we may only spend $5, $3, but they get in front of a couple thousand tinters. So I think that's perfect advice. page. Billy asked, I want to know how to directly advertise through Facebook that have to like people who have not liked my page.
Well, you build
audience.
you basically build an audience. Give you an example, like if we're working with a client that does residential and commercial type, let's say we're working with a client that focuses a lot on residential. We as an agency are going to go into the back of their ads manager and we're going to build an audience in a geographic area that we've discussed with the client, which may drill down to not even towns, like just throwing a 25-mile radius. We might be targeting very specific pinned areas within their town where the homes are such that they might be conducive to selling window film. We're also going to specifically target people that appear to be homeowners, not just somebody that might be renting, because typically renters aren't spending money on upgrades to the home that they're living in. We also are probably going to target things like demographics, like probably limited to the top 50 percentile of income earners in the United States. We're probably also going to limit the age. If somebody's under the age of 24, they're probably not a homeowner. If somebody's over the age of 64, they might be at a stage where they're on a fixed income and they're probably not going to spend money on anything that's not a necessity, potentially. So we're going to get into the back of Ads Manager and we're going to build a very, very specific targeted audience. And then we're going to put money behind that. And that, when you run an ad like that, that has nothing to do with people that have liked your page. You've defined an audience that you want to show that ad to that has that likelihood those people haven't liked your page.
And what's cool too is if you on the topic of getting your audience down, one of the audiences that Facebook allows you to create. So if you're using a CRM like TintWiz or something similar, you can actually export your contacts out of there. You can upload them into Facebook Ads Manager, and then you can create what's called a lookalike audience. So then you're not necessarily having to figure out, well, what kind of people do I want to target? You're going to say, hey, this is all our paying customers. Facebook, can you match our ads with people that are similar to these people? And that's
I think that's a great point. Lookalike audiences are awesome because you basically you're using big data to basically say, if you've got first of all, before I go to the next step, if you are not collecting customer email data, start doing that tomorrow morning. Figure out a way to politely get customer email data.
It's easy. You take their phone number, you take their name, and you say, and let me get your email so I can send you a confirmation for your appointment. Yeah. You put it into TintWiz, it automatically sends them an appointment, and you also, your confirmation, you also have their information forever.
I agree with you 100%, but I'm saying it surprises me as we work with some new clients that in some cases have been business owners for 10 years and worked on thousands and thousands of projects that have very limited email lists of people. They've done 12,000 jobs and have an email list of 500 people. I would say, again, one of these couple nuggets, hopefully, that are coming out of this is like, if you are not finding a way to collect email addresses, figure that out tomorrow, because that is an asset you own. It's something that's an asset that you own. You can use in a variety of different ways, from sending email blasts to, as back full circle to your point, to, as Erik said, you can upload that to the back end of Facebook and you can send marketing to that specific audience of people whose email addresses you have specifically. And you can also say, because this group of people, if the group is sizable enough, because this group of people have made a decision to buy from me, utilizing statistics and big data, you can say, find me another group, another group of 50,000 people that look like these people. And although it's not an exact science, the power of statistics is if this group of 5,000 people have made a decision to buy from you, and Facebook uses all the data that these people put into their profiles to find 50,000 more people that closely match these 5,000, your likelihood of converting these 50,000 people, or a high percentage of them, is dramatically better than just a 50,000 person random sampling.
Yep.
I'm not trying to use like weird stat type terms, but my point is, Facebook is not a social media platform. It's a data platform. And it's probably the best data platform that we've ever seen in the history of the world, because the data that's in there that we've populated ourselves by product of being on the website and liking sports teams and different pages we follow and things like that have made that data as good as any data out there. It's literally, if you're not utilizing the power of the data that Facebook has collected, you're really missing out.
And lookalike audiences are a way to take advantage of all that data that is too difficult for our minds to understand and requires those high-end algorithms. And Facebook wants to do a good job for you because they want you to spend more money. So that's
exactly.
Ricardo asked, are you using LinkedIn ads for smaller, medium-sized window film companies? If so, how effective do you find that platform for advertising?
I think LinkedIn is definitely becoming a more important platform. I think specifically for commercial property owners or commercial property type work, I think it's becoming more and more popular because you can really target people with specific job titles at certain, you could say, I want to reach people that work at CB Richard Ellis in the XYZ city, and that have a facility manager job title. You can really get granular on who you're putting it in front of. It's a little bit more expensive than some of the other platforms because LinkedIn has an artificial floor that the market isn't totally defining the cost of LinkedIn advertising. They're sort of manipulating that a little bit. I also think that you can get good organic reach on LinkedIn right now. It's a platform that still is allowing you to get a lot of good organic reach. So I think the first thing I would say is to get involved with LinkedIn, join some different groups on LinkedIn, things like that, and try posting not some, hey, buy this from me type of post, but try posting some things that are informational and beneficial and educational, and put those in some of the relevant groups and be active in the relevant groups. Don't let the only posts they ever see from you be you trying to sell something.
Right.
And I think you can get a lot of traction in LinkedIn organically. I do think you can utilize LinkedIn ads. I think it's a little early. They're a little pricey, but I think if you really figure it out, you definitely, for certain clients, I would say we have done LinkedIn ads, but I feel like it's more been on larger geographic areas where we can get a pretty good audience of people with the job title of facility manager, let's say. If you live in a smaller town and you have in a 50-mile radius of you, if there's only 100 people with the title facility manager, it might be kind of hard to reach those people. But if you're in a bigger geographic area, like if you're covering New York City, there's probably 1,000 facility managers that work for CB Richard Ellis alone in Manhattan. And then you throw in Knight Frank, and you throw in Jones, Lang, and LaSalle, and you throw in some of the other property managers, and all of a sudden you can create an audience of people that work for commercial property management companies that have the title of facility manager. Maybe in Manhattan you can build an audience of 5,000 people that do that specific job. And then you create a post that you think would resonate with a facilities manager, like if your tenants are uncomfortable because the zoning on your HVAC system is not proper, so half the floor is hot and half the floor is cold, that would be something a facility manager might catch their attention. So again, a lot of it is matching. I think you have to start thinking about any ad buy is matching the audience with the content. If you create a piece of content, you need to be keep in mind, like, who am I trying to reach with this content? And you need to match the audience with the content. If you're trying to reach people for facility manager type work, think about what would they be interested in. They're probably going to scroll right past a window tint type post. You have to reach them with, like, are your clients are your tenants uncomfortable? Something, you have to reach them with something that's going to get their attention.
Right, because they're going to be thinking about their clients. So if you can hit them with their clients, they're going to think about that. If you're going to hit them with window tint, that's not on their mind. They're going to pass it before they even know what you wrote. Billy asked, he said he's guilty of using his phone mostly. Is he missing out by not using his computer? So can you do everything that we've talked about today from a phone, ad managers, Google My Business, everything from your phone? Or is there an advantage to actually using a desktop or a laptop?
I will be 100% honest in the fact that there's an ads manager app on the phone that I have that I utilize, but I do not feel like I rarely use it because I don't feel like that there may be all the options available there, but it doesn't seem as intuitive for me to use. It's harder for me to access those or figure out where they're at. So I rarely use it just because I feel like it's harder for me to find. I just know the desktop version so much better that I tend to always go there.
I feel that exact way.
Those options might be available on the app. I just haven't spent enough time to figure out if they're there or not. So again, I don't want to mislead you and say they're not there. They may be there. I found when I'm using the app, it takes me twice as long to get done what I want to get done. So I just don't do it that way.
I do the same thing. It's way easier on desktop. I get exact same thing. Exactly what Patrick just said. I have the apps on my phone, but it's always easier. Jump on the desktop. It's a lot of information, so you may actually not realize it's easier to find on your on a laptop. And you know, a laptop these days, you can buy a refurbished MacBook Air for $300 or $400 on Amazon, and it'll serve all the purpose you need. So just like, it's definitely worth the investment, in my opinion. I think everybody should have a computer. So popped up on the screen. So we've reached the bottom of the comments. We are out of questions. I have a list of everyone who asked a question. I've pasted them into this random name generator that's up on the screen. And I'm going to hit submit. And let's see who won this book. So it opened up a pinwheel, and it's about to spin and land on someone. So let's see.
Oh, here we go. I see it on the...
Let's see. Oh, I actually had to spin it. Oh man, it's got me tense. I'm like, all right. Looks like.
What do you have to do? Did it spin? I didn't see it spin.
It's fun. Yeah. There's a little delay on watching it, so me and you are in current time, and but yeah, it just spun and it landed on Matt Blackmer. So Matt Blackmer won, and it'll be easy to get in touch with Matt and get that book to him. So
yeah,
cool. Well,
I see a lot of faces of like upset faces about the spin. No, I see a lot of the floating.
Hey, I used class
tools. We did it as you know, I guess democratically as you possibly could do to make sure we weren't influencing it at all.
Yep. I use classtools.net. They have a random name picker, and I have no affiliation with them. I didn't build this tool. So Matt, congratulations on winning that book. And Patrick, thanks again for doing this.
No, thanks. I mean, I appreciate you having me on. And again, I'm always open to, this is, again, I mean, if somebody couldn't be on today, this is something that'll play on in the future. But at some point in time, maybe every, 6 months or so, we could do this, because I think it's actually, people are going to have different questions. And quite honestly, the questions they may have 6 months from now would be different than they are today based on what we were talking about earlier. Things change and it's constantly evolving. But, we as a company really want to give back to the industry and just provide people with good information, because whether you use us or whether you use somebody else, I feel like you need to at least know enough about what you're doing with digital marketing to make sure you're not being taken advantage of.
Right.
And again, to me, if you get nothing else from these, is to where you have enough information to understand, pardon my French, if somebody's bullshitting you or not. I think that's a value. I'm not saying you shouldn't use somebody, but I think you need to know enough to where your BS radar goes off when you're talking to somebody if they sound like they're not telling you the truth. So if nothing else, like I said, this was never an effort for somebody to say, hey, come work with us. It's more just to say, hey, the more informed somebody is, I think the better it is for them and for our industry to help our industry grow. So
that's it. Well, thanks folks for watching. Thanks for joining us. We will see you next Tuesday. And Patrick, see you again soon, brother.
Thanks. Take care, guys.